I'm Shannon Chipman, and we're back here with Miss Trina Joestar, our Nutrition Education Program Assistant for Purdue Extension, Ohio County. I work in Health and Human Sciences and 4-H Youth Development, and one of the most important things we need to think about when we're in a recipe, especially when it comes to desserts, which, Trina, I love me some desserts.
Yes, she does.
I do love desserts. One of the things we got to think about is how to make it as healthy as possible, but still have that excellent taste that's going to bring people back wanting more. So today we are going to actually make some zucchini brownies as the last installment of our Let's Get Cooking Summer Squash Splendor workshop. Pretty excited about this one.
Me too.
So, zucchini and brownies, my husband, when I told him about it, he was like, those two things don't go together. And then I told him he was wrong, and they do go together, and I proved it right because he really enjoyed this recipe. So, in regards to this, you know, we looked at the original recipe, and it called for sugar and oil and things like that to go in there. Now, obviously, those things make everything tastes really, really good. The more sugar, the better. But in trying to prep to make this a little bit healthier and to also reduce the amount of calories and kind of understand better what the serving size was going to be for this, Trina and I went through and we kind of tried to look for some corners that we could cut in regards to calories in fats and sweets. So what we did was, in the original recipe, it called for half a cup of oil. So what we decided to do was substitute applesauce. And basically, when you're going to substitute any oils with applesauce or baby food puree, you can also try pumpkin, you can use banana, but those are like the primary things. Basically, what you do is if it calls for half a cup of oil, it's a half cup of that substitute. So applesauce, pumpkin, whatever you're going to use. Next, we looked at the recipe and we're like, wow, 1.5 cups of sugar, that's a lot of sugar. And when I was going over this, my 5-year-old was like, I love sugar. And I'm like, I know, so we gotta cut back on it. So we decided to go ahead and use Splenda. So now when you're using a sugar substitute like Splenda, Splenda is super concentrated, so it's got like an extra sweetness to it. And it can also kind of sometimes leave like a funky aftertaste in the back of your mouth when you have too much of it. So with this Splenda, what we decided to do was, instead of using 1.5 cups of sugar, we decided to go ahead and cut it down to 3/4 of a cup of Splenda to help to reduce the calories. And when we did this, one serving of these brownies that we're gonna make in this 9x13 pan, well, we'll have 24 servings of brownies in this 9x13 pan, one serving of these brownies without the icing is only gonna have about 51 calories based on the calculation that we did with MyFitnessPal. Now, when you add the icing in, and everybody knows that icing makes like everything better.
Yeah, because I'm like, I want to know how many calories with the icing.
With the icing, it's actually still under 100 calories, and it's about 98 calories, and that's with using butter, powdered sugar. So we decided to leave the sweetness, the more sweetness component, to the icing versus the filler of the brownies. So to start us off, we've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour that I've already whisked together with 1/2 cup of cocoa, some salt, and then baking soda. Next, Trina put together 1/2 cup of applesauce, 3/4 of a cup of Splenda, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So what we're gonna do is, using our mixer with our paddle on it, we're gonna go ahead and Trina's gonna go ahead and dump our Splenda, applesauce, and our vanilla into that mixer and get it started until it's well blended.
Now, why do you have this paddle on here?
Because the paddle, I find that with this recipe, when I experimented with it, the batter got really, really, really thick upon adding the flour and the cocoa powder and all of that. So I felt that the paddle mixer combined the ingredients better than, say, like the whisk would do it, or the hook or anything like that. And so I just want to...
And we did wash our hands.
We did wash our hands, yes. So what Trina's going to do is she's added in the applesauce, the Splenda, the vanilla, and our zucchini. Now here was the other part where Trina and I kind of changed things up a bit. So this recipe calls for shredded zucchini, like we talked about last week with Marcia. However, when I made this recipe, my husband's like, it's really obvious there's zucchini in it because there's really long pieces of it. So what we did was, instead of using the shredded zucchini, we put it in the food processor and processed it down into smaller pieces, so that hopefully it's a little bit less noticeable. So once again, you can sneak that stuff in and those little kids won't notice it.
Too.
So Trina's gonna go ahead and turn on the mixer, and she's gonna mix that, and so it's well blended. Then what we're gonna do, Trina, is we're slowly gonna add, like by 1/4 cup, we're slowly gonna add our flour mixture. So I'll move this over here for you.
Okay.
So
You want me to put a little bit of water in it?
I would wait to do the water until like after the flour mixture, because depending on how much water is in the zucchini determines how much water is going to be needed once the flour mixture is mixed in.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm doing this too. When we got out of our 9x13 pan, what I did was laid a piece of tinfoil down in it and then coated the tinfoil with nonstick cooking spray. So that way it bakes, and then once the brownies are baked, you can then lift it up out of the pan and set it on your cooling rack and then throw it into your fridge or your freezer for a quick cooling so that you can ice these accordingly. Because you don't want to ice them when they're still warm, because all that gooey icing is going to just melt right off. And we definitely don't want that to happen because the icing is amazing. So
I think that's the best part.
I think
I love icing.
I do too. Icing's like the best thing ever. So Trina's carefully mixing in this the cocoa powder, the flour, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of baking soda. And this batter is going to be thick. So there might even, if you don't have a bigger mixer, and say like you're using a handheld mixer, towards the end, as the more flour and cocoa powder you add to it, you might actually have to stop using your mixer and start using your hands to make sure that all the ingredients are incorporated. This recipe does call for a little bit of water to be added to it, and the water does help towards the end as the batter is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And the other thing is you just want to kind of gauge how much you want to go for water, because it's anywhere from 3 to 5 tablespoons. Depending on how wet your zucchini is, you might not have to add even that much water. So, and the other thing is the water helps add liquid, because obviously in this recipe we don't even have any eggs in it. So it's sensitive. It's one of those recipes that's good for those people that maybe have a sensitivity to eggs or an allergy to eggs. Now, another thing you can do with this recipe is you can add in, at the end, you can add in walnuts, pecans, chocolate chips. We're not doing any of that today though, because we're just keeping it basic.
We are trying to keep it healthy.
We are, and we're also just really still excited about
And then when I go home, I'm going to add me some chocolate chips.
There you go.
I am so picky.
So, anyway, Trina loves her chocolate chips. So anyway, but you can always add extra stuff into here. Like I said, the dark chocolate chips, milk chocolate chips, walnuts, pecans, whatever you
Throw a
want to
banana
do.
in it.
You can probably even throw a banana in it. That might also make it a little more moist as well.
Right.
And so Trina's adding the water by teaspoonful. You can add it by teaspoon or tablespoon. Just kind of gauge it as you're going along. The batter is going to be really thick though, and it's gonna take a little bit to spread it out once we get it in the 9x13 pan. That is looking good.
And
I would say, Trina, we're ready to put it in 9x13.
so when I came to Shannon's house, I'm like, oh, where's the leftover zucchini brownies that you did the taste test to? Well, there is none. That's how good they were.
So as you can see, let's get out of your way here. So as the batter is it's very thick. Like, it's not going anywhere. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our spatula and we're gonna kind of run it around the side of the pan, and we're gonna scoop it into our 9x13 pan. And so as you can see, it is thick, it is pretty goopy, but it smells delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So, now Trina, what are we gonna bake this at?
350.
350 for, was it 25 to 30 minutes?
Let me look. 350, 25, 30 minutes.
Okay. So now I found that when I baked it the other night, when I was experimenting with this, it says to bake it until like it kind of bounces back. What I noticed was that I baked it for about 28 minutes, and then I pulled it out of the oven and let it sit for like 5 minutes so it could like finish baking, and then it was good. And then I lifted it up out of the pan, so to let it cool then. So as you can see, we're spreading it out in this 9x13 pan, and it's thick, like we said it was gonna be, but you really can't even see the zucchini in here. And when I made it with the shredded zucchini, you could see the zucchini. But now
That's the best part about sneaking it in there too.
yeah. But now the best part is that we've got it to where it's all real blended in there, and I don't even think the little ones would be able to figure out if there was zucchini in there. Okay, so we've got this all blended and spread out in here. Well, like I said, will help make it easier to get these brownies out of the pan when you're ready. So Trina, will you put this in the mixing bowl for me? So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and set this in our oven at 350 for 25 minutes. And the oven just stinks, so we're gonna go ahead and pull these zucchini brownies out.
Oh, and it smells amazing as usual.
It does. So what I'm gonna do is pull these out and let it sit over here on our cooling rack
Okay.
for a little bit and turn off my oven here so everybody can see what we're
There you
doing.
go.
So I have my brownies in the pan, and I'm just gonna pull it out and set it on this cooling rack right here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop it in the refrigerator, and while it's chilling out in the refrigerator, then we're gonna go ahead and make our icing up. So our brownies,
too bad you can't smell it.
To make the icing, we've already got all of our ingredients pre-measured. And basically what we're gonna do is using our paddle mixer again, we are going to put together our powdered sugar. We have 2 cups of that. We have 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. We have just a dash of salt, a half a stick of butter, because we gotta support America's dairy farmers and butter makes everything better. And then we have some vanilla, and then we have some milk as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna combine all these ingredients into my mixer and let it mix until it's nice and smooth. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the powdered sugar so we can put that in there. And just as a baking tip, I often find that anytime I have powdered sugar, it usually like blows up and goes like everywhere. I always find that if I do my dry ingredients first with my mixer and kind of turn it on like a slow stir, it kind of helps so that it doesn't break up everywhere and go like a cloud. So, all right, so we're slowly mixing that up. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and carefully pick up the speed just a little bit, and I'm gonna incorporate my butter. And then our vanilla. Our milk. And so now this is just gonna mix together, and it's gonna come together and make, the icing kind of reminds me of like what you would find on like a Texas sheet cake.
Okay.
So it's got a really good flavor, it's nice and rich, and it's definitely gonna complement our zucchini very well. We're just gonna scrape the sides and make sure we're incorporating all those ingredients.
Frosting's the best part.
Looks like those are all mixed in. Go ahead and turn off our mixer. And you can see, just from looking at it, like everything's nice and smooth. It's got some good texture to it. And so we're gonna go ahead and take it off our mixer. Our beater over to the side. Just scrape the sides. Make sure we got all that powdered sugar incorporated in there. And then we're just gonna let this sit until we're ready to go ahead and, we've let the brownies sit in the fridge for about 30 minutes to cool, and they're ready now. So we're gonna take this nice ooey gooey chocolate icing, and we're gonna go ahead and just spread it on the top. And like I said, this icing kind of resembles the icing that we would have like on a Texas sheet cake, or a chocolate sheet cake. I used to call them Texas sheet cakes, but anyway, we're just gonna smooth this on here, make it look pretty.
And I even made the comment after it was made, oh, it didn't look like it was gonna be very much to even spread out, but as you can see, there is plenty there.
So Gina, are you ready to try a slice
Yes.
of this? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut this into our 2-inch square serving size. So as we're cutting it, and Gina, here's your sample. Pretty excited. And you know, one of the coolest things about this recipe is not only is it chocolate, but the zucchini came from one of our local 4-H members who has a beautiful garden just down the road from me. So I want to give a shout out to Zach and his garden for the zucchini that he shared with us.
Thanks, Zach.
To make these zucchini brownies. So check out the recipe at the end. Let us know what you think. And for more information on this topic or any others, check out extension.purdue.edu/Ohio. Thanks.